The story of the Manifest Destiny begins in 1823 with James Monroe, in which James Monroe said, "The American continents are henceforth not to be considered as subjects for future colonization by any European powers." This is what we call the Monroe Doctrine. This is just the general idea, that European powers could not recolonize the newly independent Latin American countries and other American land. So, they did this because it would threaten American power in the region, and they really didn't want more European power because it was a threat to American sovereignty. Now, later, we got the Manifest Destiny, which was a perversion of the Monroe Doctrine. The first perversion, I would argue, that occurred was in 1830 with the expulsion of the indigenous peoples of America with the acts like the Indian Removal Act of 1830. This was justified by the Monroe Doctrine, as well as the Cherokee Trail of Tears, also justified by the Monroe Doctrine. Is it good? No, but that's the way it was, so. And then there's also the Mexican-American War in 1846. One could make a case to argue both sides, however, I think it was a mix. A mix between Manifest Destiny, or the want of a great American empire expansion, or just a great America. I would argue Great American Empire, but Great America is what we're going to go with right now. So the want of a great America is partially what justified the Mexican-American War, and another huge part of it was that Mexico had threatened war several times against the United States for accepting Texas as a state into the Union. This was very much frowned upon, and they didn't want this because they still thought that Texas should belong to them. So they threatened war several times, and it was just very tense, and it was bound to happen in this situation, just because neither side was willing to bend the knee, let's say. And then there's the American-Philippine War and the Mexican, well, let's just call it the American-Spanish War, or the Spanish-American War, because that's what it was. The war between where we invaded Cuba and the Philippines. These were also justified by the Monroe Doctrine, and it was Manifest Destiny that this was the Manifest Destiny in practice. There was no reason we should have been to either of these places other than the want of expansion. And World War I is another similar example of the Monroe Doctrine being used to justify the Manifest Destiny, and a completely immoral act. And this stretches all the way forth into modern times, with the Vietnam War and other wars. Thank you, and if you like longer videos, please like and subscribe. Bye.